Welcome to the WiseTake DFS Podcast. I am your host, CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I'm joined here by Patio Joe. You can find him on Twitter at Patio Joe Ref. Patio, how we doing tonight?
Doing well. I had a light night on DFS. Had a doctor's appointment right around lineup lock time and in prime hours to do the research when lineups were coming out. So one of my things that I like to do is I like to be a little bit strict and disciplined, that if I don't have time to do the proper research and the proper what I like to do, I like to go light and just do a little bit. And I think everybody should take that into consideration when they're starting out, because just because if you don't do the proper research and then you go in with 15-20% of your bankroll, that's not going to help it. So if you go light, if you win something, great. If you don't, you know what? It's not a big deal. Move on to the next day.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like understand, like if you have a day where you're busy and you don't have the time to put in the same amount of research that you normally do over a given slate, then it's like, then why would you put the same amount of money up for risk? It doesn't make sense, right? It's like if you know, I can understand you if your normal sequence, if normally you do have time to do 2-3 hours of research a day, let's say the average player, and all of a sudden this day, like you said, there's a doctor's appointment or something, and you only have an hour or half an hour or whatever, then your volume should not be nearly the same, right?
Yeah, I mean it's almost like at that point I think you're gambling.
Right.
In so many ways. I think you're gambling. I don't think it's a skill game. You're kind of going on, well, I've been playing it a lot. I know I could do this and do that and throw it in and play this amount and throw in this and this lineup and this lineup. And, you know, I'm the type of player where I don't need, $100 out on the table to get that kind of like that rush or that urge to be able to follow the games. I need a couple lineups and I'm good.
Yeah, and Joe, I know when we brought you on the team here and we talked to you, I know one of the things that you were biggest on is basically your not just bankroll management, but your bankroll discipline. Like I know that you always talk about how you love taking time off from time to time, and that's something that I think a lot of people, especially the people who are new, they have to kind of learn, right? Like why don't you tell us a little bit about your feelings on bankroll management overall?
Okay, well, the first thing about bankroll management is that it's a process that takes a couple years to kind of get a grasp on. And I know when you're new that you're starting out, you want to know all the answers right away. Well, unfortunately, step one is something that might take you a while. And step one is identifying what type of player you are. And what that means is, are you a cash game player or are you a GPP player? A cash game player, for those out there that are new, are head-to-heads, double-ups, 50-50s, where 50% of the pool gets money, 50% don't. You basically double your money. In theory, it's supposed to be easier to make money. I found that right now I'm being kind of led that maybe I'm more of a GPP player in baseball, but I think in football I'm more of a cash player. And it's basically, you got to find out exactly what type of player you are, and then once you can find out what type of player you are, you need to know what your goal is. What do you want to be? What do you want to do this for fun? Do you want to make the qualifier? Do you want to, win $100,000? What exactly you want to do? You have to have a goal. You can't just go at it blindly thinking, well, I know a lot about baseball. I can do it. I know the basics of how to make a lineup. And so those are just basically the parameters just on the outline before we even get to how much you should even be betting every day. Because if you're a cash game player, I'll tell you should be betting 90% of whatever's in your bankroll should be on cash games and 10% should be in GPPs. But if you're a GPP player, you shouldn't be doing that. Why? It's not going to help you. So it's about identifying who the type of player you are, and finding your limits, and knowing what exactly you want to accomplish playing DFS.
Yeah, I think that's some great stuff, and we're definitely gonna have some awesome bankroll stuff up on the website once we get closer to completion there. So it's a great point, Joe. So all right, now that you're all warmed up with the vocals there,
Yeah.
you ready to talk some? But we only got 9 games in the main slate. We're not going to talk about the early slate because there's only 4 games. 5 games is the limit. If it's 5 games or more, we will talk about it. But if it's under 5, we just don't want to talk about 4-game slate. So there's really only 9 games, man. So we can take our time, go in a little bit. You ready to do this?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I will say is that if you are playing the early slate, stack the D-backs against Chad Kuhl, and I like Zach Godley. Those are just quick. Just looking at the lineup, the pitching is terrible. So, go at it with it. Get any bats you want and go at it that way because I like Zach Godley as the pitcher. Everybody else kind of stinks. So that's just a broad view if you're looking at it.
It's a pretty ugly pitching slate that early on. Hey, gotta give you the props real quick with Robbie Ray, man. He ended up being the top pitcher of the night.
Yeah. I mean, he looked good. I'm telling you, he's great on the road, and it's crazy because the guys, he has the highest hard hit rate in the major leagues. How does that happen? It's funny. It's being a left-handed pitcher. It's amazing what you can do to hitters at times.
Yeah, it's funny because he's obviously got one of the higher swinging strike rates as well. So it's kind of like a give and take balance situation, right? It's like, yeah, he's getting hit the hardest, but he's also getting the most misses. So it's Robbie Ray, man. It was a good call, man. I was on sale in cash. I got burned a little bit by the Nelson Cruz. I'm calm now. I was a little more upset about it earlier, but Nelson Cruz, man, I was telling you, Joe, I've been on a horrible bad luck streak as far as my players getting hurt. I was on Trout and cash when Trout got hurt. It's like all my cash game like studs are getting hurt. So I think that I got to change them. Maybe I got to pick a guy that like I don't mind if he gets hurt, so that I don't even know how to approach that, or just or maybe just take a break and take some of your bankroll management advice, huh?
Yeah, just take a day off, and take a breather. It doesn't hurt anybody.
That's it. All right, man. So let's get started here. We only got 9 games, so it shouldn't take us too long. But let's see what we got now. Now, the one thing we did know is the pitching is not a problem on this main slate. We got tons of pitching. There's a lot of spots that seem good for bats, but one thing that Joe and I can tell you is on a 9-game slate, which is obviously much shorter than the 12, 13, 14, 15 games that we typically see during the week. The margin of error is much smaller, so be very careful. If you pick a stack that is wrong, it's going to be way harder for you to overcome that with the bats. Right, Joe?
Yeah, it will, and that's why it's a good slate for cash. There's no Coors, there's no Chase Field, so go at it. As good as well as you see fit. I'm definitely going to be going out with some cash games tomorrow, and I will be playing some GPPs, but there's, like I said, you definitely know where you're going to go on a smaller slate. You know where the public's going to go better. And I like slates about 9 games. It's really, really juicy, and it seems where I do the best.
Awesome. All right, we got Masahiro Tanaka of the New York Yankees visiting Kevin Gausman of Fuego's Baltimore Orioles. Go ahead, Joe.
All right. Well, Tanaka has been very unreliable this year, so I don't like him. But I don't know if I necessarily want any of the bats of the Orioles either. And on the other side, the Yankees, they put up monster numbers today. Gausman has been a little bit better in the recent just past, but he's nobody that scares me. The Yankees are one of the best stacks you can roll with. Tomorrow, I do know that Brett Gardner has pretty good BVP against Gausman, and he hit 2 home runs today. If he's leading off, he might be a great cash game play at center field.
Yeah, it's a great point. Now, one thing I will say about Tanaka is I would imagine you're probably going to find Baltimore pretty under-owned, even though they have a 4.4 projected run total, simply because Tanaka's coming off his best start of the year, one of his best starts of his career against the A's, man. He had just a ridiculous game against the A's his last time out. And there was a lot of talk, like pretty much every podcast, every DFS site was basically saying, oh, there's something wrong with Tanaka. We think he's hurt, blah, blah, blah. There was one person, Max Steinberg, somebody I learned a lot from, who did tweet that there's nothing wrong with Tanaka. He's a top 5 pitcher on the slate. And then sure enough, he ended up being right. Tanaka ended up just crushing at his price. And So I think the O's will go a little under-owned because I think people are going to just all of a sudden hop on the Tanaka train. But I'm with you. I still don't believe that he's the bottom line is I don't think he's an elite pitcher. So if you're not an elite pitcher and you have a power team and you're on the road against a powerful team in a hitter's ballpark with some pretty nice weather, 77 degrees over in Baltimore, then you know what? In tournaments, I think it makes perfect sense to attack him a little bit. Guys like Chris Davis, maybe Seth Smith, some lefties I would prefer. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm not too big on Tanaka against this Baltimore team. Something just doesn't sit right here. And as far as Gausman, one thing I will say on his behalf, I think the Yankees are going to be one of the chalkier stacks of the night. 4.7, they're one of the higher projected totals on the team. Team totals on the night, and they've been red hot. I mean, they did it again tonight. I think they went nuts with the runs. I know. I think Gardner hit 2 home runs. Holiday hit 2 home runs. They just went crazy. So I would expect the Yankees to be super popular against Gausman. The only thing I don't like here, though, is Gausman actually does have better numbers at home. Now, they're not great, a 297 WOBA at home, but it's 6% better than when he's on the road. Now, he's also had a little bit of reverse splits here, 261 versus lefties and 332 versus righties when he's at home. So that's something that's interesting to keep in mind. I still wouldn't mind taking those lefties. Gardner, as you mentioned, has the BVP. He's been red hot anyway. So I'm not saying that to avoid the lefties. I'm just saying don't ignore the righties as well. But yeah, I think the Yankees are going to be somewhat chalky, and in tournaments, I might try to pivot elsewhere. But I think in cash, there's going to be a lot of solid plays from this Yankee team. Sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, we got Junior Guerra of the Milwaukee Brewers visiting Jacob deGrom of my New York Mets. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, this is one of the two main pitching. You're going to have to make a question tomorrow in cash. And is it going to be deGrom or is it going to be Scherzer? They're both basically the same price, and they're both facing a team that you can take advantage of. The Giants are one of the worst hitting teams in the major leagues, and the Brewers strike out more than almost anybody in the majors. It's basically who are you more confident in? I think maybe the East Coast guys will probably take deGrom, and the guys living out west will probably like Scherzer just because they'll be staying up later at night. Both teams, it's probably going to come down to maybe just the Brewers strike out just a little bit more than the Giants do. So it's basically what you want for tomorrow. But as for Guerra, I believe he's coming back off maybe his second start. So he doesn't scare me. You want the lefty bats of the Mets in this game. If you want to play this game, I will probably be looking somewhere else, though.
Yeah, I'm with you. As far as the pitchers go, I personally, it's probably no surprise for those of you who have listened to the show for a while. And if Matt was on here, I could already hear it. Homer, homer, homer. But yeah, I like deGrom a lot better than Scherzer. One, he is cheaper. On FanDuel, it's only $300, so it's not like you're getting a huge discount. But the main reason is because he's home. deGrom has very, very good home numbers in general. He's got a 257 home WOBA over his last 2 years. And now listen, Scherzer is still Scherzer. 266 on the road is Scherzer. So Scherzer is still Scherzer. But dude, this is one of the situations where if deGrom's at home, I have plenty of interest in him. And the Brewers strike out a lot more than the Giants do. The Giants, they're definitely a weak offense, and he's got that going for him. But I think Milwaukee's a weak offense, and they strike out a ton. And Citi Field is still pretty much a pitcher's ballpark for the most part. So if I have the choice between the two, which I do, I'm going to go with deGrom, probably in cash and in tournaments, just because I think that deGrom can at least come close to Scherzer, if not beat him. So if he's going to be, even if it's only $300, again, I'd rather just take that. So they're both great plays. I don't think you can go wrong playing either one of them in cash. I just personally, for me, I'm going to go with deGrom because I think there's more K upside here. Now listen, if deGrom was on the road and Scherzer was on the road, I would like Scherzer. Simple as that. This is specifically because he's at home. I really like playing deGrom at home. Similar to Chris Archer. I like playing Archer at home too, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, as far as the bats, man, I'm with you, man. It's just there's so many other spots that you could pick from, even on a 9-game slate. I don't really want to pick on Guerra, man. Like, listen, he was supposed to be one of their better pitchers, like before he got hurt or whatever, and like at the end of last year or whatever it was, he was doing pretty well, like even in Milwaukee. And now you're gonna put him in Citi Field against the Mets offense. They just went extra innings. They haven't been hitting all that great. Like they've been okay. Like Duda's been hot. If you want to take a chance on some of these guys, Duda. They got plenty of lefties if you want to try it. But like you said, Joe, I think there's just too many other better spots. I just don't think I don't think I'm gonna go here for much other than deGrom.
Two things. The first one is on DraftKings, deGrom is 1,300 less than Scherzer.
Oh, wow.
So that is a lock and load deGrom over Scherzer, in my opinion. And two, I'm showing here, DraftKings is showing maybe some weather in New York tomorrow. What are you seeing?
Well, what I'm seeing is 66 degrees, 12% chance of precipitation, and 80% humidity. So I'm not saying it as if it's too much of a threat, but you know what? It's early, so we're gonna have to see tomorrow. It has been raining a lot over here. I'm over here in Jersey, so it's been raining a lot in the Northeast. Like, we've had a lot of rain, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is supposed to rain tomorrow at some point. But that's gonna make a big difference, obviously. Great point.
Yeah, I would definitely be watching the weather. If it's gonna have any rain at all, then you gotta pivot to Scherzer.
You gotta go to Scherzer. Yep, absolutely. All right, we got Chris Archer of the Tampa Bay Rays visiting the Texas Rangers, and Austin Bibbins-Dirks, I believe is his name. It looks like he's a guy that he's had 4 appearances out of the bullpen already this year. Go ahead, Joe.
Austin Bibbins-Dirks performing live after the game concert. But yeah, so Chris Archer, the guy is having a great year. He's had one really bad start probably at Cleveland on May 15th, and maybe another bad one, I would say maybe at Baltimore. But besides that, he's been pretty damn consistent. GPP only though tomorrow because the Rangers can blow him up. I'm probably not. I'm going to stay off of him because I do respect that Rangers offense. But Archer does have the skills to put up just as much as deGrom or Scherzer. So in a tournament, I don't mind it. And then as for the Rays, attack Bibbins-Dirks with the Rays bats. They did pretty well tonight. Kiermaier had a good hit at a home run, and Dickerson did well. So I like the bats and Archer and GPPs. Rangers, if you want to get ballsy, definitely if you're doing multi teams in a qualifier. Big tournament, definitely maybe a Ranger stack will be very, very low owned.
Yeah, I'm really liking that call on the Rangers. So to start off with Chris Archer, I don't mind Archer, and like you said, Joe, I think he's a good tournament pivot, I guess, at 10-4 if you're looking to get a little cheaper. Now, I really only play Archer on the road. Don't get me wrong, his K per 9 is still there, his striker percentage is still there, but his WOBA overall is much better at home. We're talking 5.86%, a 322 road WOBA. It's significantly different from his home WOBA. And now the same thing carries over. He struggles against lefties a little bit more and righties a little bit more on the road. So just in general, he's just not the same. Now, the thing about this matchup is, yeah, you see Archer with the Rays with a 5.2 projected run total. But then you look at the Rangers. They're going up against Archer. They strike out a ton as a team. And they still got a 4.4 Vegas projection total. So I think it's a great call. I think, like in cash, you're not going to want to target Archer on a slate where you don't have to. But in tournaments, 4.4, we just talked about the Mets being 4.4. We talked about the O's being 4.4. So of these 4.4, so to speak, I would imagine the Rangers are going to get the lowest ownership. And they have the best hitting conditions, 78 degrees, about 60% humidity. They're out in Texas. And what's Archer's biggest problem? The home run ball. He's not a ground ball guy. He gives up fly balls. And so, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, Odor let a lot of people down today. On FanDuel, they're all still priced down. Gallo 2.8, Odor 2.8, Mazzara 3.2. So, yeah, I think the Texas, they're starting to heat up a little bit. They're swinging away. I think it's a great call for tournaments. Now, I think, it's one of those hedge plays, right? It's like, yeah, you could see the merit for Archer in a tournament because the Rangers are striking out a ton, but you also see the merit in a Ranger stack in a tournament. So this is like a tournament game, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, as far as Austin Bibbins, listen, we don't know much about him. He's a bullpen guy, so you can't play him because you don't know how long is he going to last. Even if he pitches well, what's he going to go 4 innings? Like so it's like you can't play him. As far as targeting him though, listen, Archer, the Rays have a 5.2 projected run total. Now, if you look at his numbers, if you go too deep, he's got too much of a small sample size. You can't rely on any of these numbers. Not to mention, when a guy's pitching out of the bullpen, the strategy is completely different than when he's a starting pitcher for the day. So we don't know what to expect. All we know is that Vegas is telling us a 5.2 projected run total. So they're expecting some runs in this game. And that's pretty much all you could really go by.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right. We got Drew Pomeranz, the lefty from the Boston Red Sox, visiting Mike Pelfrey of the Chicago White Sox. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I think I don't really have like a main double stacked burger tonight this tonight, but I think if I was going to stack a game, this might be it. The White Sox hit lefties pretty damn well. Just ask Chris Sale tonight. So now they get Pomerantz, and it's basically like Chris Sale light almost. So I feel like their bats are in a good spot tomorrow, and people are not going to think about them. I think they're going to go overlooked. I think everybody's going to go to Pelfrey, which you should. They have the highest team total of any team on the night slate, and Pelfrey is I think I'm a better pitcher than Pelfrey. I just haven't had the chance. But I pitched 20 years ago, so I think I could go out there and maybe do a little bit better than him. I can't believe that he gets people out sometimes. It's funny because you look at him and his last two starts, 39 and 34. You're like, how is he doing this? You know what I'm saying? So he's due for a blow up because the ones before then were 8, 11, 10, 11, 10. So he's due for a blow up. So stack this game. I like it, and I think the White Sox are going to go a little bit overlooked.
Yeah, I think that's a great point also, man. Like we saw, they hit Sale hard today. They weren't just hitting Sale. Sale didn't just have an off game. He got a couple strikeouts. He wasn't pitching so terrible. The White Sox were just on him, man. They were just tagging the ball. Mm-hmm. And so I think you make a great point as far as we all know the Red Sox are going to be the chalk tomorrow. They put up like 13 runs today, and now they're going up against Mike Pelfrey. Nobody's believing that Mike Pelfrey is any good, despite the fact that he hasn't been getting blown up. So I think people are going to go there. The Red Sox are going to be a chalk, and in cash games, you probably feel the most safe with the Red Sox in this ballpark against Pelfrey. Makes perfect sense. But like you said, in tournaments, don't overlook the White Sox. They got a 4.3 projected run total. They're stacked full of righties. Frazier, Abreu are still threatening, even though they may strike out. They also hit home runs. Avisel Garcia is a lefty matcher, and like you said, Pomerantz is a mini Sale. So you saw what they did to Sale. On the flip side, I also think depending on the way this line moves, if we see this total start to drop, or we see the Red Sox, they're already favored but quite a bit. But if it goes higher, or whatever the case is, Pomerantz could be a sneaky tournament play as well because he does have the upside. We know the White Sox can strike out. We've seen lefties do well against the White Sox this year. It's just, one of the better ones in the league happened to get rocked. So it was like, I do think that you want to keep an eye on those bats, but also in tournaments, I wouldn't hate a Pomerantz, throwing Pomerantz out there. If I had to choose one or the other, I would choose the White Sox bats, though, for sure.
Definitely.
All right, we got Hyunjin Ryu of the lefty from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Your Los Angeles Dodgers. Matt Amon's Los Angeles Dodgers. Visiting Carlos Martinez of the St. Louis Cardinals. Go ahead, Joe.
And if you want to become a Dodger fan, you're more than welcome to. You just let us know.
I'm good, man. I'm over on the East Coast.
We'll send you out
my Mets.
We'll send you out a shirt. Okay, so I like Carlos Martinez, and I'm trying to take my heart out of it. The Dodgers, like I look at them a little bit. I don't like to play the Dodgers a lot, just because I'd rather have them succeed, and I can cheer for them in other ways. I don't want to play them a lot because if they don't, I don't want to be upset at them even more. But tomorrow, Carlos Martinez, if you look at him, you model a consistency: 44, 46, 42, 40, 44, 37, 21, 43. If you're looking to go somewhere different tomorrow and you want to get some bigger bats in your lineup, for 9,400 is a little bit not bad. The Dodgers, they do hit righties well, so that's the one thing that would scare me off of Martinez, but he's been doing it. So, and he actually did that last game, 44 was at Colorado. So he's had a quality start in his last 6 starts. So give a look to Carlos Martinez. I know people will definitely go overlooked because you'll kind of go to Archer. You'll go up another 1,000, or you'll go down if you have to, if you're thinking about it. And then Ryu, I would not think about pitching Ryu just because he could pitch a great game, but then they could also take him out after 5 innings and then bring in some guy to pitch another 4. That's how the Dodgers do it. So you just don't know how long he's going to go. And I like the Cardinals bats too, the guys that can hit lefties well. Look at them. If Grichuk is in the lineup, I like him. And obviously I like Carpenter is always good. Even though he's a lefty. Jerko, if he's playing, I like it too. So it's interesting game. Maybe some good one-offs, good cash game plays.
I heard they sent Grichuk down to AAA.
Oh,
Actually,
really?
I'm not really sure why because I thought he was actually playing decent. But I
Yeah.
don't watch him every day. I don't know. But yeah, I did hear that. I think yesterday, the day before, they sent him down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, Ryu has been horrible since he's come back, and it's a shame because before, I mean, he's been out for a while, what, 2 years or something like that. So it was nice to see him come back, and we kind of had the high hopes because he has been, in the past he was solid, and he's shown glimpses that he still has that capability. But lately, we just haven't seen it, and until he proves it to us, even against the Cardinals, who historically struggle against lefties, I can't do it. He's 6'9", so it's tempting, but there's not even the bats that I feel like I need to have that I need a pitcher that cheap anyway. On the other side, Seymour's probably my least favorite of the top guys. Like, you got Scherzer, deGrom, Archer, Arrieta, Martinez, and like Paxton, right? Like those are I would call like say the quote unquote eliter plays. And he's probably my least favorite of that group. Only because the Dodgers, I typically like to attack them with lefties. And they got Seager, Grandal, Gonzalez, Bellinger, Utley. So listen, Martinez is still a good play. The Dodgers are only predicted for 3.8 runs by Vegas. That should tell you a little bit right there. So I do think Martinez is going to have a good game. I'm just concerned that the strikeout upside isn't going to be there necessarily. But again, I'm not saying I don't like the play. I'm just saying of those elite pitchers, he's probably my least favorite. But yeah, I certainly think it makes sense. For me, there's not much from this game I really want, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
All right, definitely. We got Matt Boyd, the lefty from the Detroit Tigers, visiting Ian Kennedy of the Kansas City Royals. This game is one of the games that we could have some weather concerns. I'm seeing light rain, 70 degrees, 72% chance of precipitation. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, you want the righty bats of the Royals against Matt Boyd. He is garbage. Ian Kennedy is he's a good pitcher for that ballpark. But in this game, you got to just watch the weather. You definitely don't want to roster any of the pitchers. And the hitters, the Tigers let people down tonight. That guy Skoglund just shoved it. So I definitely think that they're in for a rebound because Kennedy doesn't fool too many. He has been really bad lately. So this game is something that you got to look at, but I don't know. I just don't like it with the weather. So I tend to, when there's weather problems, I just tend to kind of look somewhere else.
Yeah, I think if the weather problems are going to be there in cash games, you want to stay away from this game. I mean, it's not too often you want to take a hitter in this ballpark anyway in cash games. So I think you're absolutely right as far as cash games go. In tournaments, this could be interesting. I think I do like the Royal side a bit better just because of the fact. Listen, you're right about Ian Kennedy. You hit it right on the nose. He's pretty good for this ballpark. Like, it kind of fits his style. He's a fly ball guy, but he's in a huge ballpark. His numbers reflect that he does pitch better at home, and it makes sense just because of that. You put him in a smaller ballpark like Cincinnati or something like that, you're going to want to stack against him all day. But he is decent against righties. He kind of always has been. He's your typical platoon split guy, and the lefties aren't so threatening right now for the Tigers. So that's the main thing. Now, it's still, you got J.D. Martinez, Miguel Cabrera. Just alone, those two guys alone are enough to make you not want to play a guy like Kennedy, even if the weather was good. I'm not saying I would ever play him. I just think that in tournaments, in cash games, you want to stay away from the weather. It's not worth the risk. But in tournaments, if you have a hunch, or if you're playing a bunch of lineups and you can afford to take the chance, a lot of times it makes sense to go after these weather games. So we know Boyd's not good. He has a walk issue. He doesn't typically last longer than 4 or 5 innings. So once he's out of there, the Tigers have one of the worst bullpens in the league. So then you're going to get – and listen, the problem is Kansas City's bad, right? But they got a 4.8 run projection. So you have to expect some kind of runs from them. They're up there. And Joe, you had mentioned that like you felt like they, before you noticed the weather, you were like, oh yeah, people will probably play the Royals. But then when I told you about the weather, and it's like, oh yeah, people are going to just skip it. It happens all the time. They don't want to deal with it, and we totally get it. So in tournaments, yeah, I think it could be a sneaky play. It's not, you don't love playing the Royals ever, especially in this ballpark. But in a tournament, man, look, Matt Boyd's bad, and then you got a bad bullpen behind him. So I think it does make sense if you're willing to stomach the risk.
Yeah, it's one of those, you put in 10 teams, and that's the one team, you want to kind of, just in case it does go off, nobody will have it.
Exactly. All right, we got Jaime Garcia of the Atlanta Braves, the lefty, visiting Jesse Chavez, Fuego's boy, Jesse Chavez of the Los Angeles Angels.
Of Anaheim.
There it is. All right, picking up the slack from Matt. All right, Joe, go ahead. Tell us about this game.
Yeah, it's another one of those games I don't really like. I told you yesterday to attack the Angels offense, and then they go out and they put up 9 runs off of Bartolo Colon, which I think we could put a nail in that coffin, and I think we'll be putting him out to pasture. Yeah. Jaime Garcia, his last 2 starts have done pretty well. I wouldn't pick him. I don't have any confidence in him. Pujols is 1 home run away from 600, so you got that narrative. He's a lefty, former teammate. Who knows? So I like that. Maybe Pujols tomorrow night if you're looking for that. But besides that, nothing really attracts me to this game. Jesse Chavez started out good in the season, and he's kind of tailed off. So I guess if you like the Braves, if there's some guy hitting up in the top of the lineup to get you solid relief, go for it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm not crazy about this game in general. I feel the same way. Jaime's a guy that you just have to wonder what his upside really is. I mean, he's an underdog to Jesse Chavez and this Angels lineup without Mike Trout. We already know we're going to be without Mike Trout for a while. Now listen, to your credit, Joe, you did say after Bartolo. You said attack the Angels after Bartolo. So we got to clear that up. You did know that it wasn't going to start tonight. That's for sure. But yeah, man, like I'm not dying to play Jaime. The Angels still aren't striking out as much as I'd like. I don't want any hitters in this game. I think Jesse Chavez is not good. I really don't. Listen, there's circumstances where he's worth playing, but this is not a slate where you have to do that. I don't think. Maybe on DraftKings, I guess, if you need a cheap second pitcher, if you're playing a Scherzer or deGrom, I guess maybe you can consider him just because of the ballpark, and he is favored over the Braves, so I guess that's something to consider. But there's so many there's so many great pitchers going tonight that you really got to think if you're going to make a sacrifice like that for sure. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not crazy about this game at all. All right, we got Antonio Senzatella of the Colorado Rockies visiting James Paxton, the lefty from the Seattle Mariners. Go ahead.
Well, James Paxton is probably a forgotten man because in the beginning of the season he was lights out. He had a great beginning of the season. He started off with 55, 61. And then he went on the DL for a little bit, and his last start was May 2nd, so he hasn't pitched for a little while, so you don't know how long he's going to go. So that's what scares me off of him, or I would be interested. And Senzatella, he's just decent. He has no ceiling whatsoever. His high of the year has been 43. And he seems, believe it or not, I know this sounds weird, he seems to pitch better at home. And I don't know why, but it just seems to work that way. So I don't really like Senzatella in this. Looks to see if attack him with the lefty batters of Seattle. And on the other side, Arenado hits lefties great, so you can always play him as well as Desmond. But I would stay away from all the lefty batters. I like Paxton. I just don't know how long he's going to go.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Paxton is probably, if I'm going to go under the double digits on FanDuel, Paxton is probably my favorite place to go in tournaments. Now, I'm still going to play deGrom in cash. I'd love to play Paxton in cash. It's just like you said. Well, number one, I would still play deGrom. Let me make that clear. deGrom at home, I would still play over Paxton. But I'm not going to be as heavy on Paxton just because, like you said, we don't know how long he's going to go. He was pitching great, then all of a sudden he was hurt and he was gone for a while, and Seattle's really missed him, man. Like Giovanni Gallardo's been one of their better pitchers without Paxton. So he's back, and he's against the Rockies in a good ballpark, and it looks like we finally have some nice weather, no rain out there in Seattle like we normally have. So So yeah, man, I think Paxton's a great play. 8-8 on FanDuel, and what you're paying for is the chance. He was in the nines before he went out. So what you're paying for is the risk. You're getting a discount because there's a risk. We don't know how long he's gonna go. Do your research, look it up, find out if they're gonna have him on a pitch count if you want to play him. I think in tournaments he's certainly fine. He's cheap enough. 8-8 on FanDuel is a great price against these Rockies. They do strike out a ton. So, Joe, you made a great point. They got a lot of threatening righties. Arenado, Reynolds, Desmond, Story. Like, they got some threatening righties. But still, it's James Paxton. He looked really good before he went down. So, I think Paxton is probably one of my favorite GPP pitchers on the night as far as, like, from a pricing standpoint. Like, I'd rather play him over Tanaka, who's under him, and I'd rather play him over Seamart, who's over him. Other than that, it's just deGrom and Scherzer, and even Archer maybe for tournaments. But yeah, I think Paxton is certainly interesting. I'm with you, man. If we knew for sure that he was like going to get a full Paxton run, then yeah, I think in tournaments he probably would be my guy. And I'm with you, Joe. I'm just a little scared that we don't know what to expect from him. We don't know if he's going to be rusty. We don't know what to expect. So yeah. On the other side with Sensatella, yeah, I know it's weird. We got a tiny sample size on the guy for sure, but you're right. It is a little strange. He seems to have, his numbers are slightly better at home. Maybe it's because he's like more like conscious of like, okay, no fly balls. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe it's something like that. But 4.6 projected run total for Seattle. People don't like to take hitters in this park. Nelson Cruz is supposedly hurt. He crushed me, and I'm a little upset at him, but I'm gonna hold myself back, show some professionalism, and not talk horrible about the guy. But I'm assuming he's not going to play. So Cano, Seager seemed he finally woke up a little bit, had a good game. So those guys are interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's weird. If you look just tomorrow's pitching as a whole, you have the guys at the top, and then you really don't have anybody. I mean, for me personally, I think if I had to pick one pitcher below 10,000, or no, let's just say below, I want to say 9,000 because Seamart I think is up there. Paxton would be the guy, but he has the question about how long he's going to go. So if you didn't pick that, I would probably pick Sensatella, and I know that I think that he would just be the safest in so many ways. I think that he's going to get you, maybe 30 points. He might be able to get you 3 or 4 times value, but I think that if you're going this low, you better love your hitting, and just you better love it, because I think that none of those guys can match what Scherzer, deGrom, Archer, can do if they go off.
That's a great point, man. Like, I think you're right. If you're going any lower than Paxton on FanDuel, let's make it very specific. If you're going any lower than Paxton on FanDuel, you better love your hitting, because you're passing up on a lot of upside and a lot of ceiling.
And as for on DraftKings, I'm just looking at DraftKings right now. The lowest pitcher, Paxton is 8,200, and Tanaka is 8,100, and Sensatella is 7,800. So that kind of shows you what they think of Tanaka compared to what FanDuel thinks of him. So
how much you said Tanaka was?
8,100.
8,100.
Yeah. So and Sensatella is 7,800. So that's about where I'd go tomorrow as their second pitchers. Sensatella is probably the lowest as a number 2 pitcher. I mean, maybe Chavez, as we were talking, because he's a favorite.
Yeah. Just because he's a favorite against a weak offense, right? in a good ballpark. All right, last game here. We got Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals visiting Matt Cain of the San Francisco Giants. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, like we said, Scherzer is the second pitcher you're going to be looking at tomorrow if you're going to be playing. You want to, whatever you want to pick him, play him. It's not going to be bad. Scherzer is one of the top 5 pitchers in the game this year. Like I said, he's pitching just as good as anybody. His Sierra is the lowest on the slate. His K percentage is 31.9. And he's a minus 160 favorite, and the opponent's WOBA is really low. So, aside from the strikeout percentage for the Giants, because they don't do it a lot, lock and load. On the other side, I like the Nat stack. I don't know how much the public will be on him, but they have good BVP. Jason Worth he crushes the ball off him, and even when he gets out, He still hits the ball hard as a tune of 109 miles average exit velocity. And they put up, I think, 6 runs or 7 runs against the Giants tonight. Screwed me with Samardzija. So I don't think Kane's any different. Kane is a pitcher on his last leg. So attack Matt Kane.
Yeah, man, I'm with you, man. Listen, I think that without Bryce Harper, that's certainly a blow to the Nationals lineup in general. Look, they have enough bats. Like they're a pretty good team. I'll admit that. But Bryce Harper is one of the best hitters in baseball. It's literally it's like imagine I guess it's like not the same because the Angels are so much of a worse team than the Nationals. But the Angels losing Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, the Nats losing Bryce Harper. Those are the two best hitters, in my opinion, the best two overall players in the entire league. So obviously the Nationals are going to be they're going to be in a much better position than the Angels because they have a better team overall. But yeah, man, I'm not a fan of Matt Cain. I never really have been, never really been a believer. He struggles against lefties. You got Daniel Murphy Weeders on the other side. I know you had mentioned that some of these Nats have good BVP. I think you said Worth specifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, man, I'm with you, man. I think I think that the Nats bats are certainly interesting here. It's not the greatest place to hit, but it's Matt Cain. He gets hit kind of hard, and the Nationals can hit the ball pretty hard. So yeah, I think it's certainly fine. You got anything to add on this slate before we play some Dong Watch here?
Nothing much. Just go at it. Don't get too cute with the pitching. Don't try and go. Don't go bargain basement hunting, trying to think. The bats are going to go off because, like I said, there's no Coors, there's no Chase Field, so the hitting environments aren't optimal tomorrow night. So take advantage of that with some good pitching that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I agree with you, man. Like I think you nailed it. Don't get too cute. There's a lot of good pitchers. You have more than some of these slates we've had none. And in the early slate, if you're playing that, it's a struggle. So appreciate the fact you have some elite studs going. Don't be cheap when it comes to pitching. You don't want to miss on pitching, and yeah, don't miss on your bats because the margin for error is going to be much smaller here with all these good pitchers going. All right, Joe, why don't you start us off with a Dong Watch here?
Let's see. I'm going to go with Mookie Betts.
All right, I like it. Betts. All right, I'm going to go with Chris Davis from Baltimore, and I'm going to follow that up with Judge from the Yankees. Aaron Judge.
All right. And okay, so I have two. I'm going to go with Jose Abreu and Corey Dickerson.
Corey Dick. He's been hot, man, red hot.
Yeah.
All right, I think I'll go with Odor because I think in general at least we'll have that game covered because I do think that game's gonna have some sneaky good runs in it. But anyway, hey Joe, man, I really appreciate you coming on today, man. It's nice sometimes to have just one person on, be able to go a little more in depth in the conversation and the games, and I mean we stretched it out, man. We had 9 games. I think we went like an hour and 10 minutes with all 3 of us, and we had a huge slate. We're about almost 44 minutes in, and it's just me and you, so we got to go a little in depth. It was nice, man. I appreciate you coming on, bro.
Yeah, it's good sometimes to talk a little bit more game theory and stuff like that when you have smaller slates because. Sometimes it's reacting to what is given to you on each slate, and knowing where to attack and how to attack it, and what games to enter, depending on how many games there are for you.
Yeah.
If that didn't confuse you too much.
Yeah, no, I think I get what you're saying, man. A lot of exciting stuff happening over here on Team WiseTake. We got somebody new on the team. I'm not going to give away who he is. I'll just introduce him when he actually makes it on one of these podcasts. But when we launch, we're going to have plenty of awesome premium content for you guys. It's just from some of the top players. And I will say that this guy is a recent FanDuel Live Finals qualifier. He qualified recently. I think it was, I want to say it was last week or so. So we got some exciting stuff. We'll bring him on the show and kind of get him introduced. And in general, man, we got a lot of good things coming here for Team WiseTake over here, man. So So listen, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please click that thumbs up. That like button means a lot to us. Subscribe to the channel. We did a great job of growing, and we want to continue to do that. If you're listening on Podbean, give us a follow. If you're listening on iTunes, the audio-only version, please subscribe to that channel as well. And leave us some positive reviews. Bump us up those charts. The more positive reviews we get, the higher we get rated, the more exposure we get from iTunes. So do us a favor and so support us. If you appreciate what we're doing, support us a little bit. That's all we ask. Anyway, it was a blast, like I said, Joe. So for Joe, for myself, as always, good luck.
Peace.